YouTube. All right, we are live on YouTube now. Let me go ahead and share my screen here in the Discord as well. Now that we are back in action. All right. So let's go over a little bit of TA here. First things first, I know I've already kind of posted some long and short ideas in the Discord this morning. This was the first area I was looking at for long. We didn't quite hit that naked point of control, but we did hit that naked VWAP really nicely. Also had an SFP creating potentially a tap 2 scenario here at our discount area. Nice order block. Maybe we come down, get a retest for tap 3, bigger accumulation, or we could just take it for a model 1, end up hitting that naked point of control that we left behind. And maybe that will get us back up to this area. I would love to sweep these highs into this high volume area. Naked VWAP, naked point of control. You have your previous day open. Right now, this is kind of my favorite short zone. Just to, retest this supply, this whole entire range up here. There's always a small chance that we might come to this smaller order block where the the macro value area high hit is here of this bigger range. So I'm also looking at that. And if anything, can always have a nice scalp, maybe back test PDL or wherever VWAP might be at that time. And then send us up to that naked point of control, naked VWAP area. But again, like I always say, all of these are really nice levels. They're always in play. You just really never know how you're going to get there and when you're going to get there. Right. So I can't, you can't be very predictive with every twist and turn in the market. However, if it was to, really have some clean structure, kind of have this idea here. Maybe we come down and the rejection is at VWAP. Or maybe we do come up there, but structure can always SFP this high and continue on down as well. That's why I really don't want to see it, start closing candles above this high here. So this is kind of my line in the sand. However, if you see like a 15-minute candle close, 15-minute candle close like that, but maybe like a 4 or 6 hour looks like this, and it's just a higher time frame SFP, you have to kind of wait and give that some breathing room to let it form on the higher time frames. But
Yo,
yo, what's going on, man?
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, okay. I'm
Um,
driving to the seaside, but I'm waiting for the short signal.
oh, nice. Yes, yes. Yeah, it was a nice rejection from VWAP so far. Nice SFP as we were just going over. I'm kind of going over some plans for on YouTube as well here. So, but yeah, I mean that distribution at the top here. I mean, it took forever to play out, right? But that's the whole entire idea, like I was saying yesterday. When we have, and that was in a daily order block. And that really went to like almost like, I don't know, maybe 98, 99% of that daily order block. I usually don't like to see that, but wow, it actually worked. Um, Now this blue line right here is actually that daily high where that SFP is. We didn't take that high on Bybit. However, I didn't look at any other exchanges. Maybe it actually SFP that high on, you know, Binance, maybe Hyperliquid or something like that. So there's always a chance of that. Um, but we did get a very, very nice clear breakdown. That's something I kind of want to go over here as well. Is if you were looking for shorts here and you're starting to, short every rise, and this is exactly why I always treat every short as a scalp first. When you're in a higher time frame zone, you have to always understand we might stay there for a few hours, even a couple days before it, really starts to break down, form that really clear distribution. And you're always wanting a really clear breakdown. So for me, this was actually a nice breakdown here. But as soon as you start to see some signs of reaccumulation, you also had that value area high, that it was struggling. It was battling that level out over and over and over again. And of course, you can always just use VWAP, right? VWAP had that rejection at first, but then you reclaimed it really, really nicely. Um, Also looking at this as a channel, right? Bottom trend line here, top channel. And once that breaks down, that's going to give you the signal to really search for that conservative entry. So if you get sick of like getting your short squeezed over and over and over again, wait for that breakdown, right? And you can see here we had massive displacement away. You struggle at VWAP, but eventually you start showing signs of rejection. And again, we're using this trend line as another means of support here. Yes, you did have an area of demand, order block down there as well. But nonetheless, once you start to see this, just your structure getting lower and lower and lower, that's the signs where you can find more conservative entries. And sometimes those more conservative entries actually give you a tighter stop loss. So, had just supply, revisiting supply, and same thing here. So those are some easier ways to get into trades if you like get chopped up or getting your short squeezed over and over again. Just and again, this is the part of trading no one really likes. You have to be really, really patient, but you have to really wait for that thing to break down and back test some really nice key level. Um, and then, of course, now we're breaking back into our value area, right, on the higher time frames. So if I'm looking at it through that lens, this could definitely come all the way down and start to rotate this entire range. But then we have this to get over, right? So let's pop some of those trend lines back up. So you had a very clear trend line all the way back here. This was support, fell through, flipped to resistance once more, and then the very top again. You can also see that same thing through here. So that's why I was posting here in the Discord about entering a really, really nice long here. And you can just see this as trend lines, or you can see it as a parallel channel. Doesn't matter. Again, that's going over kind of what we were talking about before the stream. Lots of different ways to come up with the same exact levels, right? Doesn't matter if you're trading trend lines, channels, volume, SMC with order blocks for value gaps. You really end up coming up with a lot of the same levels. But when you have confluence from different styles of trading, that's personally what I like to use the most. I just like to stack as much confluence as I can. And it doesn't matter if it's a level I'm trading from or if it's, execution. So I do it everything the same way, whether it's an execution confirmation or an entry trigger of itself. So definitely looking for these areas next. But, again, the question is, do we go up first, reject again, revisit some of these areas? Hopefully this level is the level I'd be looking at. or do we go down first? So if this VWAP really does give us that nice rejection, maybe we come down to here and you can always slice through a bit, right? And then come back up to this, hopefully sweeping that daily level that I was looking for yesterday. Or if we don't hit this first, could always come down, reject there, and then really start breaking down for a massive distribution. Because, if you're zoomed out, right, you see how this plays out. I mean, it's a very long time. And your tap one, tap two, tap three distribution style. Same thing here. And maybe some people might be seeing this as tap one. This is pretty much an equal high, but on a different exchange, maybe it took that high. So some people are might seeing that as a tap two and tap three as your three drives or your model one. But you never know that this could be your tap one, tap two, and this is your tap three. You can go back and, back test Wyckoff models, three taps, three drive patterns. Oftentimes, that first tap into your level that you think is tap one is actually not tap one. So it does throw you through a loop. And yeah, you never know. Like you could even extend out even more than that. It's always a possibility as well. You come up, actually take that daily high, come down to that trend line, and then you break down. And then this was actually your tap one, right? So you kind of have to like give narration, um, come up with different ideas of context to your trades. Because if you can kind of envision it, just see this, what it's supposed to look like in your head. And that's the beauty of hindsight, right? A lot of people talk shit about hindsight and, well, you always see things in hindsight. Well, yeah, I mean, that's part of backtesting is training your brain to see these patterns in real time in the future so you're ready for them. Right. So, but at the end of the day, like, what are we really doing? At the end of the day, you know, you have your high, your SFP, have this SFP, this SFP. Maybe you have an order block in the extreme discount, order block in the extreme premium. So at the end of the day, all you're doing over and over and over again is having really nice key levels and really nice locations that make sense. Hopefully, you're stacking confluence with them. And we're just playing level by level because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. We cannot predict every little twist and turn in the market. So, all this is meaningless. Well, I wouldn't say meaningless. It's all this is only really important when you get to this moment and then you see that battle go down in real time. And that's why we use order flow, because that is giving us the idea of at this key level, what does that battle look like? Who really looks strong? Who looks weak? Who's suffering? Who's being punished? Who's being rewarded? And how does control ultimately shift from that key level? So this allows us to see that instead of just going off the candles alone, of course, as that can be, you know, half blind. And let's go back in here to the 5. Let's see how this trade is playing out. Ah, lots of rejections here. Do we have any news today? Anybody know of? What is today? It's Thursday, so 8:30. That's already passed. Okay. I don't think anything crazy is going on with the news today. Pull back out to the 15. And I'd hate to say this now because I'm just now seeing this. And this kind of ruins my narrative of this short situation. Not necessarily because it doesn't always have to play out, but kind of do. See this here. as a power of 3. But again, that power of 3 doesn't always have to rotate the entire range or go above that range. It could absolutely come back to this area and then go back down. But I do see that that is like a nice, clear manipulation zone of these lows. And again, like it's no different than just looking at something that was resistance here, support here, fell through. Then you had resistance on that candle right there, and so on, right? So it's just a clear level of support and resistance. And now you're kind of watching for that flip, or basically you're watching for rejection or acceptance, right? If we get acceptance back in, maybe we can look for something here. Take us back up to this level. So if you're not in a long from that SFP that we gave out this morning, you still have a chance here that will actually look like a decent reclaim. And unfortunately, I'm kind of telling you that as it's happening. Um, so not a lot of warning time on that one. Sorry. But that was a clean reclaim, even from all the way back there. Even if you're not just using the VWAP as your level, you're just simply using support and resistance here. Do have a bit of a sell wall right here. And that's pretty good size. So let's see what goes down here. Also taking a look at this low that we SFP'd. Hadn't taken a look at bookmap just yet on this low. So I wanted to take a quick peep at it. So yeah, we had that absorption right at that low of micro CVD divergence. Had a nice clear trend line break. The delta flip was very clear on this one too. Barely have any negative delta through this rise. Very exhaustive pullback for the sellers here. Another exhaustive pullback on the sellers there. So what does this tell us? Who do you think is stronger? Like if you didn't pull the trigger here on this long, at what point through here is it, does it feel safe enough for you to pull the trigger? Because look at the size of delta in comparison to the buyers and sellers, right? Come on, let's get up to that level. It looks like it's right around there. Gonna put an alert right there. Go over to Market Monkey really quick. Okay, I'm gonna take a look at this low again here in Market Monkey. Again, we have really heavy negative delta. We have the stacked imbalances here in this candle, the displacement candle. Very heavy negative delta on here as well. You can see that through here. And then we have your trapped sellers all throughout this range here. Once you opened up this candle, you had 5, 6, another almost 6, 4, 200 thousands of Bitcoin were trapped at that moment. Once you got back over this VWAP deviation band here, you're also starting to trap everything even higher up. Okay, let's go back over here.
Market monkey's trying to lead that value area in the wick right now.
Is it?
On the 5 minute.
Nice. Yeah, so that's
Plus you
also.
got
Wait, what'd you say? Go ahead.
plus a little B div.
Oh, gotcha. Nice.
Oh no.
I was gonna say
Now it's not
where.
in the wick no more.
Okay. Yeah, it will shift until it closes. I mean, it's close enough though. You know, I would take that as far as the value area. Yeah, I mean, if you have the majority of the value area caught in the highs or the wick, um, it's a very nice trap confluence. Of course, the point of control is the most important part of that, right? Because that's the most concentrated. Or, I mean, even if you didn't even have all of this on your chart and you just had these numbers, because maybe you have more of a simplified software or whatever, right? Which most software these days should be including that, but you can just simply go off how much buying you have down here and where do you start to retest. And if you start to reject from these areas and start to go down and trap those, that's, that's the information. That's the data that you're wanting to use. Of course, no delta flip here to speak of. So yeah, so even if you do get absorption and exhaustion, you don't want to just blindly enter a trade just because of that. I mean, you're getting absorption, exhaustion everywhere. Right here in this candle, you had a lot of absorption. Right here in this candle, same thing. So you have to wait for a clear entry trigger. Something telling you that, hey, control is actually maintaining or it's shifting. Clearly here, another nice thing about using intraday levels along with everything else is if you're trying to reclaim a level and you have several rejections in this zone, you see absorption, 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 and they can't get past this level, and then they lose the level. That's a clear sign of a control shift. And here, they're going to try it again. See if they get through this time. So the wall is about 380, but you only had 100 buyers up here, and they're reloading. So someone's got to press a bigger buy button at the moment, or at least accumulatively, people need to start pressing the buy button here. And so far, all these buyers are getting absorbed, but still, this is the battle happening in real time. So it's not the moment in time that you necessarily want to pull the trigger unless you have a very aggressive entry setup. And that's why you don't want to pull the trigger on your first signs of absorption. Because it's literally only one piece of information. I see a lot of people online and on YouTube that, hey, these guys are using order flow. What am I looking for? I'm looking for absorption, exhaustion. Yes, I mean, that's one aspect of it. But like I've said over and over and over again, you get absorption and exhaustion everywhere in the chart. And that's what a lot of people forget to tell you about, or just don't tell you about, or they just don't understand deep enough to really convey the correct way to use order flow. And that's where you get a lot of people say, oh, order flow only confused me. Order flow didn't work for me. Well, yeah. I mean, you're trying to take a trade extremely prematurely. And of course, especially going against the trend like you were yesterday, or like people might have been yesterday, that's when you see squeezes over and over and over again. And it's no different. Well, it's different. However, I kind of see it very, very similar to people who trade breakouts. Like, let's say, for example, you had a large, I don't know, a significant swing high right here. And people wanted to see that break. And just like we're getting here now, let's say this was your level, this blue line. People are starting to long very late in the game when you should have been long from down here. And if you're going to long up here, you better have a really good reason to do it, or else you're really just chasing price, right? And the more extended you get out of that area, the riskier it becomes. But the same way that people prematurely pull the trigger on breakout trades or FOMO trades is really the same thing as if you prematurely the trigger on a reversal and you're pulling the trigger as the absorption is happening, but it's not finished yet, right? There's really no resolution to that battle just yet. Because this battle ate up these levels and it continued on. So in this case, this is more of a continuation breakout. But I rarely take breakout trades unless I have a lot of confluence telling me so. And there's actually one very specific breakout trade setup that I use. And no, I'm not going to go over that here. Not on a public YouTube. And even with that said, I still don't take that trade very often. It's quite rare that I do. All right, so yeah, I definitely think this thing could come up a little bit higher here. I don't think I see this as the turnaround. I don't have enough confluence on this zone just yet because this is my favorite or my like best confluence order block overlapping zone here. You have 3 order blocks that overlap in this zone. So I do like this, but I got to say, I really want this. However, we could have an opportunity here, back down to here, something like that, right? So just because the level doesn't take you 10 miles away doesn't mean it's not good for a scalp. And again, we've broken structure here. So you do have to be wary that you're in a very localized uptrend, but in a downtrend. So you have to compute that in your brain and understand if you do get short here, might only be a scalp. I'm sorry, you can actually make that run, right? If we come back down here for that continuation long, you have to be very aware of what's ahead of you. Now, if we start breaking structure over and over again, yeah, right? Because, hey, you break this structure, come up here, you break this structure, then you might want to be looking here to even continuously break structure over and over and over again if that starts to create that trend. All right. So it ate that level up. We're starting to get a half of a distribution here. See if who wants to take control. We did hit that little order block. So I do like that. And so far we're getting a nice rejection on the 5 minute. And if you can get back below these guys right here who are putting up a a wall of support, because that's pretty hefty size. Anything above 300-400, yeah, that's pretty good size. Then you have another down here. That makes me think that we still want a bit higher. There's not a whole lot of passive control that I see on the sell side. Got a decent level up here at 67, 68. Well, that's far away. Well, we will see what happens when we get there. As you already know, support, resistance to support can come in at the last second anywhere. This is a little interesting though. They keep pulling over and over and over again. All right, as we let that settle here, I'm going to take a quick look at NQ. All these are done. We did have that really, really nice long from that level, that tiny, tiny order block. I like seeing that. That one didn't have much love, but this one had a nice short from it, from this block here. I'm going to keep that block on my chart. And yes, it's a same color order block. It's not the opposite color style. You need to move New York VWAP to today.
I have 2 trades on NQ.
Oh, nice.
I'd like to go over if
Yeah.
you're doing that today.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We do that every day. We can do that whenever you like, man. Yeah, post them up in the chat. Let's go over some. I think everybody would like to see that.
Okay.
Very, very good learning experience for everyone. And really, that to be honest with you, just to another little tidbit from my experience, like journaling your trades, or even I know I say this all the fucking time. But like, say for example, maybe on Q, you want to go to the 15-minute because you're really definitely more scalpy on the NQ, right? Or at least most people do. So go back and take a look at how you could have entered in it, all of these pivots, even these short-lived trades, because you want to take a look at what these confirmations look like here and why you didn't want to stay in that trade, for example, right? And you have to start learning from hindsight first, because you don't, well, most people do this, but you shouldn't. You don't want to learn by losing a lot of money, right? So do the hindsight thing, back test, get an idea of what it looks like, then forward test with demo, please. There's no reason you need to, lose a life savings or, God forbid, you know what I'm saying? Like, no reason for that, because you can learn and practice for free with no risk. But anyways, back to this. Okay, so we're on the 1 minute here, 29,280. Let's go down to the 1 minute. Oops.
Yeah. So I was looking at this level
Mm-hmm.
because it's an SFP, or could
Yeah.
have been an SFP of the low at 29,302. So that's why I was in this area to start with.
All right.
The first long was a loss, so I got in too early,
Mm-hmm.
I guess. And the second long was also a loss because I got shaken out of it.
That can happen. Just going to take a look to the left real quick and see what was going on there first and foremost. Let's use this little guy. Okay. So what were you just looking at this from the viewpoint of just an SFP, or did you have an order block or anything like that here as well?
Just an SFP, the order
Okay.
block's a bit further below
Yeah.
this one.
Yeah. So that's what I have too. I didn't know if I was missing something. So thought I would ask. Let me take one more look here before we dive in. I want to see what this looks like from the sessions. Okay. Take a look at the RTH as well. Come on. Okay. Did have a second point of control there higher up. Had a previous point of control there. Okay. Just kind of looking around at some different levels, but we have enough there to play off of. 20. So let's zoom in. So you had this SFP here, right? The larger SFP. Then you also had this
Mm-hmm.
one here. Okay. Let me move this over here a little closer. Okay, so you started to get in here right before that second SFP, and then you saw it SFP'd, so you tried to enter in again. Okay, I see you're lining
Yeah,
the
I mean,
chart there as well. Mm-hmm.
I'm entering from bookmap rather than any candle close. So
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So what did you see on bookmap that you liked for this entry?
so the first one, there wasn't a CVD div, but we had 72 trap shorts.
Mm-hmm.
And that was about it, really. It was just the trap shorts
Okay.
was enticing me in.
Absolutely. I mean, that's usually
Um,
what you want to see on a nice SFP here, and you had a double SFP. Not only that, it's
yeah.
New York open area, so you can expect some nice moves, at least, hopefully some faster movements. So you're not getting like super duper chopped out here. Okay, so on the first one, you were taking it before the local SFP got put in.
Mm-hmm.
So I could definitely
Yeah.
see how that one would have knocked you out. But you did good by continuing on with that trade setup. And you're like, okay, now I'm seeing the second SFP come here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where after that SFP candle, you entered it again. So let's load up. Well, I'm trying to get NQ loaded up here so I can take a look at this as well.
So you had a div on that internal SFP, but then you had less trap shorts at the low, but then you still
Mhm.
had the trap shorts from the first tap.
Absolutely. So you did have that divergence on that first one. You're breaking microstructure, etc. You're starting to trap. So I can definitely see that that's a legit entry, right? But then we start to see some signs of a little distribution here. So in my opinion, that would have been, you don't have to just like get out of the trade, but again, I know some of you might only be trading with one contract sometimes. So that makes it really tough decision when you're only trading with one contract. But let's say in this example, you weren't. This is where I would have taken profit somewhere around this price action, not necessarily gotten out the trade, right? Because, things can still come back down. You have to allow something to breathe sometimes, or else you're just going to continuously get knocked out over and over and over again until you get a really nice, quick, fast displacement away to where it makes capturing those free trades very, very easily. But in this case here, I think I would have played it the same way you did here because the entry looked good. Price is coming down. You had a nice CVD div. CVD's coming up, price coming down. You had your entry triggers here. But once you made this low, you had that wider, more sweeping divergence, which is always going to be, a stronger divergence. So that's really kind of what you're waiting to see if this kind of thing starts to appear. Now, the one thing I was going to say is like, okay, did we have any more significant levels of liquidity under us? And you really didn't. You had this, but you didn't even go to it. I didn't even reach it. So, yeah. So, walk me through trade 2 because I feel like trade 1 is a fair loss. So,
Yep.
what got you shaken
Uh,
out on trade 2?
I'm just looking at where exactly I exited.
Mm-hmm. You did,
So
yeah.
just checking my timings.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Take your time. Take your time.
If you look on Bookmap, I think it'll be 9:57 for you, or 10:57, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I'm on bookmap data, so this is delayed.
Let me post the screenshot. So I've just posted the screenshot of my NQ, and see we had a quick push up with some
Mm-hmm.
buyers right at the top, and then straight back down.
So you're talking about
Yeah.
1457 right here?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly where I was looking at as well. If you zoom in on that, it does kind of give you this crazy overextended Model 2 action here. And then it comes down and then rips back up. So you're saying that
Mm.
this one took you out, this one here?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So I'm trying to look now to see kind of how I would have managed this. I mean, it's not to say that, hey, good, bad, wrong, right. It's a million different ways you could play these trades, right? Everyone's going to manage their trades a little bit differently, etc. Were you using more than one contract, by the way? Just curious.
Yes, I
Okay.
was.
So did you manage to take any profit once you saw this SFP at the high?
No.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, that's one thing that you could do. Obviously, this is hindsight. When you're in it, everything looks, more scary sometimes. Everything's moving really fast, etc. What was your entry again on this exactly? Guess I could go look at that, huh?
So it
So
was
29,
390,
390.
390 even.
Okay. 29, 390. Is that correct?
Wait, no,
Because that's
it's
way
not.
up here. 290.
Yeah, that's
You're
not right.
probably 290, right?
316. Sorry.
316. Oh, yeah. So that's the same thing as I saw back here. Okay. Just want to make sure. So I want to draw this on my chart.
And yeah, that impulse up and down was
right there.
so fast, like it's literally 20 seconds.
Right.
It's pulsed up and pulsed down. Like unless I have a limit up there, I can't see how I'm going to react that quickly to like processing that information, making the decision, and executing the decision, and still be in profit.
Yeah, I mean, it always comes back down to the decision of how aggressive or how conservative you want to manage this trade. Because if you're moving, obviously your entries here, make this green so I can make that very clear. So entries here, and where was your stop loss, you know, at the get-go here from
At
the
the low.
start? At the low. Okay.
At the low. Yeah.
Gotcha. So we had that stop loss right here. Okay.
It didn't hit stop. I manually closed after I saw that
Yeah. I
wick,
gotcha.
and then started to go red, so just got out the trade.
Right. Which is not a horrible idea, because after you see this SFP here, that does give you the idea, okay, we're going to go back down to somewhere, but where are we going to find support, etc. So when you were looking at this entire SFP situation, the only thing, and again, this is all hindsight, sometimes this is very, very hard to see in the moment. So again, I just want to make that very clear, because I'm not saying that in the moment I could have seen this too, right? I may have, I may not have. But if you're looking at the 1 minute time frame, you're seeing this local SFP, and maybe you're focused on that. Maybe you're focused on that local SFP, but you can't forget about your main SFP too. So if you walk your time frames up, and it's probably going to be a 15-minute if I had to guess here. But but what I'm saying is I would also be looking at the 15-minute to see if that closes above the, your main SFP here. And we are on RTH. I need to switch that back really quick. So that was your higher time frame SFP that we had marked out, right? So that's why I always want to look to the left, see what's going on there. So the only thing I could have said any different, and again, I'm not saying you could have always noticed this in real time, but this is something I like to do on SFPs, and that's why I'm saying it, is I like, if you're getting a local SFP here, you got your 1 minute, I always like to walk up timeframes to make sure we're going to close above this blue line here, your higher time frame SFP. And you get that in the 15-minute. So you would have had to wait, and of course you would have had to endure that little bit of drawdown, which was what here? About 60 ticks. So, and your stop loss, unfortunately, here did have to be pretty wide, right? So that's a 230 tick stop, right? So, yeah, the only thing I could say on this situation is try to take a little profit when you see something bearish happening. And again, if we go back here, you kind of see this put in. But once you see this put in, you had 2 seconds to make a decision, right? And you did. Like, you just decided, hey, I didn't take profit here. It's coming down. I'm just going to close. So it's not that that's what I'm saying. It's not that was a bad decision at all. Because yes, this worked out by going up. But next time you get yourself in this situation, it might actually go all the way down, and then you just saved yourself from a full stop, right? So even though we're like, I don't want to overfit what happened here to every situation in the future. That's what I'm trying not to do. So I'm trying in that context, that's why I'm so aggressive on taking profits and guarding my trades very, very aggressively. Especially if you're down on the 1 minute. So the way I look at this is you have to match your time frames to the way you enter, to the way you manage your trade. If you're on a 30-second, 1-minute time frame, always entering there, you kind of need to take aggressive trades. Majority of the time, not all the time. Sometimes you get nice retests that create more conservative setups. But NQ at New York Open time is usually not the one that's going to do that. However, sometimes it does, right? So you have to be ready for everything. So that's why I'm kind of saying, like, if you're concentrating on this low time frame SFP, this one right here, then you kind of need to take it aggressively and manage aggressively. But if you're looking at this through the eyes of that 15-minute or 30-minute SFP, right? Then that's when, like, a part of me will revert back to the old school way of doing things. And that's if, just the very traditional way of taking SFPs is you break down through the level, you wait for the candle to close back above the level. And then it retests that candle close right here on 15. And to be honest with you, this is one of the things that crushed my trading for years. And that's the ability to remember to zoom out and to really understand how to use multiple time frames and not get locked down on the lower time frames. And I'm not saying by any means that that's what you were doing here at all, right? Because you could have clearly had multiple windows open with other time frames and you were taking note of these things, but you still decided to take the trade the way you did. Nothing wrong with that. You can only take what you can take sometimes. And like you were saying, things move incredibly fast to where you really have a split second to decide, right? Especially with NQ. Like NQ can move like 500,000 ticks in just a couple minutes. So it's a little bit less forgiving than, say, ES or Bitcoin. So sometimes these situations, like I'm going over here, you're not going to be able to do what I'm saying in real time. You're just not. And I want to be transparent about that. Like sometimes it's fucking impossible, like really. And you got to take what you can get and you got to manage the trades the best way you can in the moment, right? But ultimately, I think you played this quite well because, like I was saying, once you see that SFP here, you don't have any guarantee that you're not just going to come back and take these lows and come into your order block. You also had a larger liquidity level that I see right here, right? 69, it's still there. Well, this is delayed, so it was still there, might still be there, doesn't matter. You had a level right below it, right? So sometimes you might think in your head, well, hell, this could just continue on and then come to this level, and that's the bounce, right? No different than if you took the trade here and you got knocked out of that one. Well, shit, I'm just getting, kind of like on Bitcoin yesterday, squeezing the shorts. This is just squeezing the longs. So I don't think this was anything like easy and obvious to work around. I think this is just a part of real trading. And that's what people need to really recognize.
Think if I hadn't taken the first loss, I probably could have held to second
a little
long.
easier. Yeah. Because that
Yeah,
psychology
so
is a little easier. Right. I agree.
yeah, I didn't want to stack losses trying to long the same SFP. So yeah,
Yeah.
looking back, the first entry was a bit premature.
I mean, you did get confirmations there. So, and you did hit the naked VWAP. You still started to break below that 15-minute. Man, I can't simply say that that was a bad decision. You know what I'm saying? Like, objectively speaking, when you get your trade setups, I mean, you need to take them, right? If you're getting clear signals of that. The only other thing I can say, again, the only thing, especially on NQ, because it moves so far, so quick, like if you do get a decent entry, and this is always, it doesn't matter what you're playing, is if your entry, and I'm talking about over here, on this first touchdown here, if you can somehow manage your entry, and right here probably would have been your area of entry after you started seeing some entry triggers, right? Even a back test on this area. So even getting in somewhere right here, and let's say you have a little spread, took you a little time, and you got your entry right here. That's still 235 ticks. So the only thing I can say is take profits along the way. That's really it. Everything else on these setups that you took, I gotta say, it's just legit. Like it's and you had the right idea, did you not? Like, what did we do from this area? It's not like your idea was wrong at all. So it's really about trade management because your entry was in the right zone. So it's not your entry. Sure, could you have gotten a more aggressive entry? Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. And again, that's why I'm saying this is real trading. So I think with that situation, the only thing that could be a positive change is just to take a little bit of profit. You know, could be 20, 25, 30%, could be 50% even if you wanted to. What I personally like to do if it's my first fresh trade for the day, I really like to lock it in, right? And y'all see this on the Discord all the time, how I manage my trades. Um,
The only issue I have with that on that first long, my entry was 314. So
yeah,
it really didn't go
yeah,
that far to consider a TP.
right. And that's why I was saying it really depends on that entry and if you can get that good entry. But sometimes you just can't, right? This is a 1 minute chart. You had a couple minutes to decide, right? So, I mean, and just because we see this painted here and it looked like this, you have to think, you know, this candle opened, but it could have been doing this for a minute. And then it's going to, that's what I'm getting across is that's going to mess with your psychology saying, oh, should I get in? Should I get in? Should I get in? And, you know, some setups are worse than others. Some are much clearer than others. But again, I don't think I see this as a bad trade or a bad setup at all. It was a very good trade setup. Yeah, the only thing I would have done different if I could have, not saying I could have, because if your entry's way up here, you would have probably not done what I am about to say, and that's just take a little profit once you see this SFP. But again, you have to keep in mind when you're on these low time frames, that SFP closed right here. And then the next 30 seconds, this candle opened and went down. So you had 30 seconds to make a damn decision, right? So this is the worst part about playing really low time frames. It's always going to be more risky. And that's why I always try to just take profits whenever, wherever I can. But like you're saying here, that's not always going to be an option, or maybe not be a good option, right? The only other thing you could have done, of course, is just left your stop loss down here, you know, like we've talked about many times. And that, you know, that debate will continue on to the test of time of which way is better. You know, you're never going to find a one size fits all answer, unfortunately. Sometimes it'll be the way to do it. You know, look really good, but you're only going to see that after it happens, right? So in real time, you're faced with that decision. But if you really believe in that level, like let's say, for example, these naked VWAPs and naked point of controls, I personally have statistics on. I don't have them on NQ, unfortunately. I have more statistics on ES and Bitcoin. So I have a certain win rate on these levels. And that's one of the things I'm banking on, right? So if I have a statistic that says, hey, this certain level gives me a 70% win rate over the past 2 years on a Wednesday in the New York AM session, I'm just going to fucking take that trade because of the level. It's the level I trust due to my statistics, right? So unless you have something like that to work with, that does give you an extra upper hand. Um, but nonetheless, sometimes this is going to happen and there's nothing you can do about it. The only thing you can do about it is maybe we see this as a flip zone and we try another trade. And then you bank off a really, really good trade. And these losses won't matter, right? So you just got to say on to the next. But does that make sense? As far as like those trade management scenarios, the different ways that you can kind of look at those things. And of course, like you've already mentioned, it's really going to depend on how aggressive you can get that entry, and where your
Yeah.
entry even ends up. Some people might have a horrible spread and they click the button, but their actual entry is much worse than what they initially wanted. So,
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
but good trade idea overall, man. Like, and you were watching the whole area. I mean, I think you absolutely nailed the confirmations there. So again, sometimes if you're not, like we talked about before, if you're not comfortable with taking very aggressive entries or managing that trade aggressively, then you just have to keep your stop loss down here at the lows, trust the levels, trust what you're seeing to play out in due time, and just journal it, right? So if you're going to not manage the trade aggressively, just see how that works out over time, because it could absolutely work out just fine. Because in my eyes, you're not really playing a 1 minute time frame here. You're playing off a much bigger structure. So in that context, it's like, hey, what are we really doing here? If I'm looking at this here, right? We just put in a distribution, nice trend line respect. What do we do whenever you see a breakdown from a distribution? I'm always going to look at your quarters or the golden pocket and be like, okay, I'm going to wait for a nice long in this more extreme discount zone. But I just, not just the location. You have to have the key levels in the location, right? You had that. You can even look at this as a 30, 1 hour. So this is more of a high time frame entry, in my opinion, because this has the potential, if we can kill this little downtrend right here, which you absolutely could, come up here, come back down, and then come up, creating more of a model 2 there, right? So it goes back to when you're taking or making your plans, try to envision the aftermath and how do we get from here to here, right? So it's go down to 15. Oops, didn't mean to do that. So you do have a nice liquidity wave here, which gives you some forced exit power to come back up. So if we can just manage to get back over VWAP, I do believe that we are going to take out these highs. And hell, potentially take out all of that, right? So what I'm saying is sometimes that higher time frame narrative can guide you to deciding on how you want to manage that trade. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I didn't really zoom out after I was in the trade. I was just still looking at bookmap.
Yeah. So yeah, and so that's kind of, I'd say, like the importance of your pre-plan. You know, not only do you want, of course you mark out your levels. I get all that, right? Everyone does that. But also think about, like, when we get to here, what is this looking like through not just the 1 minute? What does this look like through the 15 minute, the 1 hour, the 4 hour, etc.? Because you don't want to ignore that, right? Um,
Mhm.
and this is why I always tell people, like, what I personally do is I have my session volume profiles on another screen. So I'm automatically always looking at the 30 minute when I have my session volume profiles. And if you don't have multiple screens, just come here and split your screen. You know, you can even just have like a one little small square up here or something, however you like to do it. All that's personal preference. But I definitely recommend doing that because I can't tell y'all enough. Like, I spent years trying to master multi-time frame context and multi-time frame entries. And I guarantee you that, I mean, that was, at least for me, that was one of my most common downfalls that led to me just continuously not understanding why this worked this time and why it didn't work the next time. And it really had everything to do with not really considering multiple time frames. And that's what a lot of people do on NQ. A lot of people go on YouTube. You see all your futures traders out there. Everybody is on the 1 minute. And yes, NQ and ES have really nice intraday 1 minute structure. Really does. But it's also really great for people to get chopped up with too. Um, so you really just kind of have to find that rhythm with the asset you're trading. And just no matter what you're doing, I just really suggest to have either another screen or just a split screen of a higher time frame. At least that's something that really, really helped me. And even when you're back testing, like when I'm, saying like, okay, go here, this 15-minute high, this low, like, what did it, like, if you took this long right here, what did it look like as we were coming in to this 15-minute order block and this value area high and a previous day point of control? So we have our level, right? It's the bottom of this range. You have, so you have a clear narrative here. You have a clear context. So if you're in a long here, you always have to look at the opposite trade idea to see when to get out too, right? Because I mean, it's no different than saying, okay, well, if you're in this long, where are you going to start to take profits? Well, I kind of look at it like, where would I start to look for a short? That's my answer. Where would I start to look for a short, and where's liquidity? So, but I like to go back after the day is done. And let's say, you start here or whatever session you're playing, always back test the sessions that you can trade. That's extremely important, in my opinion. Extremely important. If you can't trade New York session, don't back test New York session. It can't, well, I shouldn't say don't, but it's not going to be as helpful because the volume, the characteristics of that session are going to change drastically. And I'm speaking more so on ES and NQ, okay? Bitcoin does have very different characteristics during Asia session as well. However, it's not quite as sensitive to time as ES and Q are. But absolutely. So I think back testing is always extremely valuable. And at the end of the day, say we opened up here 9:30, usually around 4 or 5 o'clock every day, I will look at everything that happened for the day. And I'll go back and be like, okay, if I just follow this along, hide the hindsight, what do I see? What about this backtest VWAP, right? Could I have seen that happen before? Like if I see this here and I don't see that wick up yet, I'm like, okay, well, at least I have my level there. I can look at this as an area of interest. We have a 1 minute order block that had nice displacement away. Same color order block. Yes, I get it. Some people don't like that. So at this moment in time, I would go in there and order flow, look at bookmap, look at clusters if you're using software with clusters on it, and just take a look, see what you see there. And likewise, if you're in a long from down here, did you have any signals here to get out, take profit, right? And no different than anything else. Thank you, Tori, for your exquisite $30,000 course that helped me more than anything. Had that nice back test of the trend line, same as VWAP. And this is New York VWAP, by the way. So you had your levels, you had your location, right? You were breaking down. This displacement candle is a clear signal of us breaking down after this rejection. And again, rejection here of VWAP as well. If you go down to the 30-second, you'll start to see more structure. If you go here on bookmap, you'll see more structure there. Anyway, sorry, that's kind of a long rant there. Let's go back to Bitcoin. So we did get that rejection. Did shoot down my tiny order block that could, unfortunately. Worked as a zone, but not on the money. But the value area high, still putting in some work here. And just like we were saying earlier, catch this long, potential back test on that VWAP. And this was that exact area, the first area I was looking for a short. And again, like I've already said, I think we could back test that VWAP, go higher, then come on down. Or maybe we just go ahead and sweep this now and then come up to this level. Either way, right? So it doesn't matter. You don't have to be right. You don't have to be predictive, right? You don't have to get every single move correct. All this predictive crap I hear on YouTube and X is kind of wild. I don't know. Really don't know how that started because I just tell you right now, it's extremely hard to predict what the market's going to do at any given second. And yeah, like, okay, if this happens, was I right? Sure. But that's just because it's a probability. I don't have a crystal ball. Like, it's just what I envision of one thing happening. But I have many things that could happen. We could come back right here, sweep that low into this order block, weekly VWAP. So I have 1, 2, 3 levels I'm looking at. So it doesn't matter. I just trade level by level. The level only tells me where to start watching at. And that's exactly the same thing I try to tell people about absorption on order flow. Absorption only tells you where to start watching for that control shift or that control to maintain, depending on if you're looking at a reversal or continuation, right? All right. Any questions? Was there any confirmation that local top BTC just put in? Let's take a look. That's a great question. I want to know too. Ooh, that was nice. I mean, just look at this here. So you had heavy buying delta. And how do we know that? Well, we know that through a few different ways, right? You can see the numbers on the buy side of the cluster candle. We have our stacked imbalances showing that there's much more buying outweighing the selling here. So it's just comparing both sides to a ratio. Also want to zoom out just a little bit here. Okay. because what I'm looking at when I zoom out, by the way, I guess I should tell everyone, is I'm looking at liquidity. I'm looking at forced exits. So the next thing my mind goes to, like, okay, you're asking, do we get a confirmation there? First thing I want to see is this move on strength or weakness? Is this new longs FOMOing out, trying to get a breakout? Did we have a high here? We did have a local internal high, but I wouldn't necessarily call that a breakout. But what I do see that as, people who shorted here are going to start trailing their stop losses by, above these, any swing high, really, right? You probably had stop losses all throughout here, which that leads to a nice wick because you get a lot or a quick burst of buying right here when these shorts get stopped out, but it goes nowhere because that fuel is finite. It runs out real quick. Same thing here. So we start stopping people out through this area. I want to know, is this move because of that stop out mostly, or is it a lot of longs actually coming in here? So I'm going to jump over here real quick for furthest view. So we do see a lot of net shorts opening here, actually. You do get that open interest flush as we're flushing up. So you can expect that, hey, there's not a lot of longs opening. And what do we see here? We don't really see many longs. New longs opening, by the way. So yeah. So my first context clue is that, hey, this is actually a lot of people getting stopped out. And what does that mean to me? Well, that tells me that there's no new money coming in here. There's not a lot of interest to carry this higher. So that is your first context clue. Number two, you do have a lot of potential longs trapped up here. You do see by the white dotted lines, they're kind of faint, but nonetheless, the value area low is here. Value area high is here. So we have a value area caught in the wick. Then we have a couple candles of indecision here. And you see down here, there's not a whole lot of buying coming in. You have more sellers. Now you don't get a real nice push here. So there's no reason to really pull a trigger here just yet. But what do we see here? Right? What do we see here? Well, what do we see there? Taking a look at this on Bookmap. Is that the right high? 1025. So this is that high right there. You have those stacked imbalances. So again, this is how you see those stacked imbalances on Bookmap. So the same way you're seeing this right here. Price makes a high. You end up making a nice little bull flag type of situation. You break that trend line. And that's when you start stopping people out as well. People, getting into longs too. There's always going to be a mix. It's not just going to be an isolated event by any means. You didn't get any kind of divergence here to speak of. You had this weird kind of internal divergence from here to here. And personally, I do not like those. They're not my favorite. So I can't say that I would have used that at all personally. However, on stuff like this is just a pullback. So I also want to look for those, the sweeping divergences as well. We didn't really even get that either. So, and no, I'm not going to take that internal divergence there either. I personally don't like those. That's just me though. You did get that, sure, but I don't like it. So yeah, so I would have just been looking at this like, hey, we made a high, we rejected very, very clearly, came back, probably hit golden pocket 786 area right there. Start to see breaking down in several different ways. And what do we see here? What's, just like I was saying, take a look at how much money or how many buyers are being trapped. And then you got to look for your entry trigger after that. And yeah, there's going to be very, very aggressive entry triggers here. And then there's more conservative entry triggers down here. But on this move, you should have been at least in a short by this point here. And again, just very, very nice zone, right? Very, very clear zone. You have that typical distribution pattern putting in. And I'm not going to go deep in entry triggers because that's going to be a long conversation in the course. But if you take a look at this right here, go back and take a look at Bookmap and see how many times you have this identical pattern. I'll leave it at that for now. We will be going over that very, very deeply this month. But yeah, to answer your questions, you absolutely had confirmations there. Now, you didn't really have like everything that I would like to see, but you had enough. Absolutely. Awesome. Good. Any other trades anybody's gone over or has taken that you want me to go over? I mean, so far today, we had the long, we had the short. Both were areas that I gave out this morning in the Discord. Very, very nice setups. And thankfully, Bitcoin's actually moving pretty smooth today. So that's nice to see. And again, next setup is right here. We need to see if we can actually touch down to VWAP. Kind of front running on that one here, at least on the 15. Resolution will change a little bit on TradingView. Take a look at that on, yeah, see we did hit the VWAP on Binance. Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I really wouldn't mind this coming all the way back and then giving us a nice long when it hits this naked point of control. We already hit the naked VWAP, but I still would like to hit this weekly and this naked point of control here. But this structure leg could be done. Could be done. Maybe we go just much further down and it's just going to look something like that. And we are not going to come back up to this until much, much later. You know, that's always a possibility. Yeah, so there's always the possibility we come down to that area that I was looking at on this channel, the bottom of this channel. Then we revisit that, maybe go down lower, taking this entire channel out. Stopped up. All right. Anybody else have any questions? I'm going to get off of here and go grab some food. See if I can't get into any trades myself today. Any questions? Ugh. Yeah, no problem, Nika. Always love doing this for y'all. Hopefully, y'all are actually getting some stuff out of this, and hopefully, y'all are enjoying the course. I know it's very, very close to the end now, which I'm sure everyone's very, very excited for this last lesson, and then we'll get into the next course, which is going to be the blueprint course, where it's going to really outline my entire playbook. So we start to put all of this together. We're going to put, you know, smart money concepts, smart money patterns, volume, and order flow all together in a playbook. So it's really nicely organized and structured. So all this is just a lot cleaner, you know, so you don't have to like piece everything together yourself. Everything's going to be just done for you. I want the learning experience to be very smooth and very well structured in a nice framework, because I just believe, as with anything in life, you know, if you don't have structure to your life, it can become a wreck and it become chaotic. And I'm sure everyone here can attest to that with trading. The more you learn, the more chaos it seems to be, because you're really trying to do this and trying to piece together so many different things from so many different strategies or different styles of trading. And everyone's doing their own thing, but hopefully I'm doing justice by showing people how you can come up with the same exact levels with so many different strategies, so many different styles of trading. So I'm trying to really get out there that, you know, it's not always just about the style of trading you use. It's really about, hey, how can we really have a nice framework for execution, trade management, and risk management? Because I think once, and a lot of people get the context and the levels, and, you know, everything like that. A lot of that is not the hard part for most people, especially the levels, right? So I think more practice and more repetitions need to be concentrated around execution, trade management, risk management, but through a structured framework, an entire system. Um, but anyways, man, I'll leave y'all with that. And I appreciate everyone for being here as always. And I will catch y'all again tomorrow. Is today Thursday? Today's not Friday. Okay, yeah. Just want to make sure. Every day looks the same sometimes. So, but yeah, I'll see y'all tomorrow and Friday, and we'll do this again tomorrow on New York Open. Appreciate everyone.